show friends. I gotta get out of these clothes. Oh, that is so much better. So where was I? So not only did I go off on my own at only 3 years old, but also by the time I was 13, I had run away 3 times and then escaped from a boys' home, not once, but twice. So I don't know, maybe it's just something that's in my blood and in my nature that I have to roam. I kind of feel like that's the case, but maybe it was something about growing up in rural Pennsylvania in this kind of small little town, and I just wasn't made for that. I knew there was a bigger world out there and there was just too much to see and do. So that's not how I started traveling, but that's just a little background on my earliest adventures, right? Ugh, we gotta fix this light. So where was I? So when I was in college, I worked at a cafe called Stell Coffee and Tea Company. And while I was there, that was the kind of whole inception of my love for specialty coffee. But also while I was there, I met 2 customers named Justin and Jeremy Kreisiga. Justin and Jeremy had just returned from Prague, where they were teaching English. And it blew my mind that there was this thing that potentially I could do because I was studying English, that I could actually go and get certified and use that skill to help me to live abroad and to see other countries. So it totally lit a fire in me. But it was also kind of agonizing because I learned that I had to finish my degree before I could do it. Generally speaking, if you want to teach English abroad, you need to have a bachelor degree to go along with your TEFL certificate. And in most countries, that's the case. There's a few that are exceptions, but generally that's what you're going to find. Anyway, as agonizing as that was, I continued going to school and I finished my degree. And in 2010, I sold almost every single thing I owned except for a few things that remained in storage and moved to Prague with basically no return plans. I had no intention of actually coming back. But while I was there, I actually went to the same school, TEFL Worldwide Prague, where Justin and Jeremy got their TEFL certificates. They set me up with a job at a kindergarten in Prague, and it was a really, really, really interesting experience. But living in Prague was seriously a mega challenge. A funny digression is that I actually, when I was in the Marine Corps, I resisted being deployed because there was this period of time where I was so totally attached to my friends and this like social group that I didn't want to be anywhere. It was so painful for me when I joined the Marines to leave my friends behind. And then once I was in the Marines and I was in California and I made all these new friends, I didn't want to leave them either. So I totally resisted going overseas in the Marine Corps, which it really, really blows me away. It was just a season I went through, I guess. But anyway, I really had trouble making friends, and that kind of social side of me that kept me from traveling before, that was being pressed upon while I was there. It was really, really a big challenge for me. Partly, I think maybe that has to do with the fact that it's a big drinking culture and I don't drink at all. I generally don't go to bars. So I think that sort of compounded it with this sort of Eastern culture that's a little bit harder to crack. So coming from California, everyone's really, really friendly from the outset, but it's hard to make really, really good friends. But still, people have general niceties all the time, whereas the Czech people are a little bit more reserved in that regard, and there's kind of a high barrier to entry. But once you get up and over that wall, you have friends for life. But I didn't really know that. I didn't understand that exactly. So it was quite a challenge. Now, at the time, I was also married to Anissa, which some of you may see on my blog from time to time. She still has a few articles on there, and she was really, really unhappy there. And if we compound that with the fact that the pay was relatively low in the Czech Republic, which meant that traveling in Western Europe wasn't much of a possibility. We sort of were making just enough money to support ourselves there, and that was exciting, but it wasn't exactly what we had in mind. We thought that we would be able to have this access to Europe every weekend, we could be in a new country, and that really wasn't the case. Ultimately, we ended up coming home early, and I have to say, I was devastated. I was so bummed because not 6 or 7 months prior, I sold almost every superfluous thing that had ever meant anything to me. Sold all my records. I got rid of like everything. And I also had invested most of what I had saved into the TEFL course. So it was really a devastating blow for me. But we ended up going back home and spending about a year back stateside. Now, while we were in Prague, my friend Josh was also teaching English, but he was teaching English in Korea. And I remembered him telling me how friendly the people were there and what a great time and a great experience that he had. So after a little while home, our kind of travel bug started itching us again, and we decided that we would give Korea a try. And now, after what happened last time and having to come home, I was really, really reserved at kind of making that leap again. One way or another, we did it. We jumped through all the hoops that are teaching in Korea, and we taught at a local Hagwon in Daegu, South Korea. Now, I have to tell you, working at Hagwons, it's hard work, but the pay is much better. The people are very, very friendly, and the kids are totally lovely in South Korea. So I really, really had a good experience. But we still had some kind of culture shock issues and some kind of stressors about being away from our friends, and kind of that compounded with the different culture that led to us having a bit of stress while we lived there. But at the end of our first year in South Korea, we did our first big 6-week trip. And this was the first like travel that I ever did in the way that I imagined it as a backpacker. I had a 30-liter Osprey backpack. We had got a little point and shoot camera and an iPad. I had none of the gear and all the crazy stuff that I bring with me today. But we were so ambitious and foolish in a way that we tried to do 6 countries in 6 weeks. But not only that, but we were using Malaysia, we were using Kuala Lumpur as our hub, so we were flying back and forth. We were flying the whole time. It was mayhem, and by the end of it, we were so exhausted. And that is how we kind of learned through a couple other people that we met while we were traveling about slow travel and about slowing down and kind of taking things a little bit slower. The one thing that stands out to me the most about that trip is in all these kind of bucket list things that I wanted to do and I wanted to see and I wanted to experience, Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat was on that list. And it was just so completely foreign and magical and this mystical, unimaginable place. I didn't think that I would ever see it in my life. Growing up in central Pennsylvania, living in a trailer park, like I didn't think I was going to see anything like that in my lifetime. And then I remember that morning, we made our way into the park, we paid, but we're sitting at a little cafe, and there's a little girl trying to sell us some photograph postcards, and I look out in the distance, and the sun is starting to rise over Angkor Wat. And I was so overwhelmed with joy and just disbelief that I cried, I wept. I couldn't believe that I was actually there, seeing it with my own eyes. As you can see me now, right? But that was everything. That was everything that I was really, really looking for, kind of captured in that one moment. And the irony of me doing all these travel vlogs and the travel blog and all this now is that I barely took a single picture that day. I just, something happened. I think my phone wasn't working or my battery died, something, and I was just totally there in the moment. Wow, man, what an experience. And one I can absolutely recommend. If there's a place that you're going to go in Southeast Asia, that's a good one. But okay, so one way or another, that's kind of the moral of this story. That's really what happened. Was I started out by meeting these guys that taught English abroad, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do this. So I followed in their footsteps, and it was a long path. It wasn't fast. I still had to finish my degree, but I stayed on that path, and I kept that vision in my mind. And when it became a reality, man, it was just so mind-blowing. Now, I have to tell you that it's not always a rose garden now. And I know that now, but back then, just like the amazement of being in this place and seeing all these things, it really, really blew my mind. And of course, if you've been traveling for any length of time, you know that there's challenges to traveling, but I was too wrapped up in it. I didn't realize those things quite at the time. So one way or another, when this 6-week trip concluded, I wasn't sure if I was ever going to be able to travel again. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to sustain this kind of thing, or if I would ever have the money. Now, I have to tell you, I'm ashamed to say in those 6 weeks, I think that we spent $14,000. Oh my God. I could travel for months on $14,000 now. Months and months. But one way or another, that was the beginning. That was the beginning for me, was teaching English abroad. And that gave me the kind of that foot in the door, and it also allowed me to kind of save up some money so that I could have some sustained traveling. Now, fast forward another year home, and lo and behold, we ended up back in Korea for another 2 years. And those 2 years, we saved a really, really substantial amount of money, and that allowed us to travel South America for 8 months. And then, essentially, since then, I've been traveling full time. I have made a few stops back home and substitute taught a little bit, but generally, I've been on the road since then. And so that's it. That's how I started traveling. Now, if you had any similar experiences, you have any questions about how you could start traveling, or any questions about teaching English abroad, drop those in the comments below. If you want some more travel stories from me, or some more travel inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell to know when new videos come out. And until next time, stay homesick and stay vegan. Thank you.